Thank you, Dr. Malik. So welcome you all to the day 15th of this FDP. And today we will be having a session on publishing in online information review journal by Professor Ekta Sinha. I welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of JNK Economic Association.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
To all the audience, just a brief introduction about ma'am. Professor Sinha is committed educator and a researcher working at the intersection of people-centered technology, sustainability, and entrepreneurship. She holds a doctorate in management from Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies, India, and is a senior research fellow of Advanced Higher Education Academy, United Kingdom. And with over 11 years of shaping learning experiences across academia and industry, her work spans from organizational behavior, human-centered technology, HRM, sustainable strategy, entrepreneurship, and cross-cultural communication. And she has also impacted 5,000 plus learners globally. That's a huge number, ma'am. She has also published in peer-reviewed journals, ABDC, ABS, Scopus, Web of Science, and has also authored teaching cases published in Ivy and contributed to Forbes India, Medium, and People Matters. She also works as an executive coach and startup mentor and serves on the editorial boards of Online Information Review and the Journal of Management and Organization and the Asian Journal of Interdisciplinary Research. So once again, we welcome you, ma'am. And let's begin with the session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Garima, for the kind introduction. I would also like to thank Dr. Malik for the kind invitation and adjusting to the time and dates, everything, because I'm based in London right now. So, and I look forward to sharing my experience as an editorial board member with my participants over here so that they can probably attempt to publish in this journal, which is Online Information Review. So as an editor, I would like to take this session forward, which will focus on publishing. And I would be happy to take questions even in between the session if someone is having any doubts or they would need any clarity on what I say. Please feel free to interrupt and put up your queries. So let's begin. As you all know that I'm Dr. Ekta Sinha. I'm currently based in London, United Kingdom, and I am associated with Regent's University, London. So let's begin. Please let me know if my slides can be seen as changing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
all right. So the Online Information Review comes into the category of Information Systems Journal. But we are very much open when we talk about information system. It's not just about, creating a purely technical paper in terms of computer sciences or coding. We are very much interested into how these kind of platforms like social media or new technologies or any information system can be utilized for social interaction or interaction for marketing or management or any such sphere of management that we can talk about, including supply chains and everything. I can also share my experience of reviewing many papers of this journal and making a decision on it so that you can get some ideas on it. Just to give you an overview, this information system journals has been previously published as Online Review until 1992 and CD-ROM Review until 1999. After that, we have switched to Online Information Review, as the name suggests. You can see that it ranks highly on the categorized listing. Like ABDC, it stands as B. And in ABS, which we follow in London, it's or United Kingdom or Europe, I would say, it stands as 2. So that's fairly reputable a listing of this journal in the reputed and coveted indexing. The impact factor, as you can see, as of 2025, it's 3.5, and we hope to see more of it as we follow down the years. The downloads and the citations, as you can see, is fairly very, very high. Publication time is quick in this journal. It's 63 days approximately from the first decision. And we try to give you the first review or the first decision after 2 weeks of your submission, or at max 3 weeks of your submission. So the first decision comes for after that. The acceptance rate is really low. It's 5.1. So we receive lot of submissions from every nook and corner of this world, but only 5.1% of whole submissions get accepted for final publication. Editor in chief of this journal is Andrew Brown. He served in Dublin Business School, and there are editors like me and associate editors who follow on this journals, and we review and take decisions with consent of Dr. Brown. Now, it is very important when you submit to a journal, it's very important to understand what the journal is actually looking forward to. I have seen many papers that are good but are not in line with what journal needs. So, based on that, sometimes people face text rejections. So if I can tell you that the core focus of this journal is multidisciplinary, as I have told in my introduction, that though it's an information systems journals, we hardly cater absolute technical papers. We look forward to the intersection of a lot of areas of how information systems can be gelled, or how information system can impact the technologies, the interactions, say on different platforms like social media, or different devices, or different, say, mobile, or when we are having say different digital platforms emerging like metaverse. So we're looking forward to intersection of these technologies and human, and how do they use these things or the technology for different sort of manifestations. Like, say, recently I reviewed a paper and took decision of major revision, which was talking about the LGBTQ, um, uh, LGBTQ, those kind of specific section of how do they use social media to promote their rights, and encourage others to follow up on their demands, rights, and duties. So that was very specific. So the scope is really wide. If you can think of anything wherein technology is used or digital information communication is used to build something in the area of management, we would be very happy to look into your paper and consider it for publication if everything goes well in the pipeline. Of course, as I said, the internet studies, media communication, social media, any new technologies or platform coming up, you can use purely data or quantitative study. We also entertain qualitative studies and some conceptual studies as well, which have really high potential, that are also considered for this journal. And but we are very strict in terms of how the ethical approvals and everything has been taken, because that matters a lot when we are talking about any kind of empirical research. So when you are doing this, you need to be very mindful of how ethics has been followed up. And many of the text rejections that I have seen or that has happened is because of the lack of ethics, or the ethical approval that authors often neglect. But this journal, we are really keen on keeping things in place in terms of how ethics and approvals have been taken in place if you are using specially human participants. And also, as I said, technical or computer science paper we don't use. If you can follow up the previous volumes of this journal, you would find that previously we used to publish these kind of papers and absolute opinion papers, but recently we have discontinued publishing opinion papers or absolute technical papers. So even if you see some of these papers in the earlier volumes of this journal, please don't misunderstood, and please don't share those papers as of now, because that will be test rejected, as those kind of papers have been discontinued now. So earlier volumes have published such papers, but now we are not entertaining those kind of papers. However, any sort of empirical or conceptual paper is highly invited if they talk about intersection of technology and human. If you can see some of the topics or coverage area that can be included in your research, covers social networking, social media, as I gave you an example, how LGBT community mobilize social media to offer insights on their rights and their duties and how they have been treated, all these things. In fact, one of my papers in online information review talks about the decision making and the behavioral aspect of human decision making. So how humans make decision using social media in terms of their planned behavior and their unplanned behavior. So both of those. So all these things are very much entertained in this journal. And we literally don't talk about only positive computing, as you can see over here, but anything which has an interesting insight relating to the new technologies or platforms and how it has been used to manifest in terms of how technologies can better lives of people or how they can be interacted. I'm sorry, if someone is eager to put up any query, I can hear some sound. Shall I continue?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
please.
Yes, ma'am. You can continue.
All right. So we have anything relating to the well-being and using technologies. You can go into the devices like mobile devices, or even how organizations use technology. So it can be either micro level, meso level, or macro level. Any kind of team, individual, or organization, you can actually look into these aspects using technological interactions. Okay. So it's not limited to only individual. You can also look into the meso and macro level of technological use when you want to publish in this journal. We are looking into social drivers, and we call very much emphasis we are trying to put these days on sustainability and how social implications are related to the technological use within, say, micro, meso, or macro level of the functioning of organization and environment. So sustainability is something that we are really focusing on. Social drivers we are looking at. You can actually also include longitudinal studies. We are very much interested in longitudinal studies. We do receive a lot of papers on cross sectional, which is definitely accepted. I would not say we don't encourage it, but we also look into some longitudinal studies that can be put up in terms of the data insights and practices, and between times how we are trying to study the lag of how the function or interaction is happening, or anything the topic of your study. So that is really really encouraged. Not only, as I said, economic perspective, but also the social welfare, also the environmental well-being, and the whole sustainability aspect, as we call the triple bottom line. We are very much interested and looking forward to receiving papers on those. um, Anything that you would want to include in terms of any experimental method or research method has to be really robust. If you're putting up something which involves experiment, I think that would be really really interesting point for us to look into your submission, because only survey is something that we would not really consider now, as we are trying to improve the journal ranking and everything. So we would want to look into mixed method. We would want to look into rich experiment methods, say focus group, or you're doing some critical incidence technique you are using, or you're using any kind of experiment, that would definitely be given high priority. Having said that, I'm not saying that surveys are not welcome. They are definitely welcome, and we are still looking into or reviewing those papers. But if you can improve on your research methods and the ethical aspects of your paper, that would be definitely be prioritized. And you may suggest, if everything goes well in terms of your theory integration and the topic of your research, your paper will be prioritized, and I think it should be able to accepted for publication. If we now, having said everything, these are the limited some of the things that I'm talking about. Of course, as researchers we work on so many things, so there could be various other topics that you can work on, but the topics which I just showed were glimpses of how you can actually have an anchor for your thinking and probably proceed in that direction. But as I said, some of the criterias that we use for desk rejections also includes the word limit. We are very, very strict on 10,000 word limit, and 10,000 includes everything, including your text, abstracts, your title, references, your table, and your the figure title and everything, all the captions. 10,000 includes everything. And for this journal, 280 words has to be allocated for any figure or table that you are using. So if you're using a figure, usually that will not count to a word count, and only the caption would come as word count. But here you must be very, very careful that for each figure and table, we count 280 words for each figure and table that you're including. So be mindful of it. 10,000 words, of course, I would not say 10%, but 3 to 5% variation can be accepted when your method is very new or something like that. If your theory involves a lot of discussion, or you are using mixed method, we can have 3 to 5% of variation, but it's almost very, very strict on word count. 10,000 means 10,000 including everything, and 280 for each table and figure that you produce in the research paper. So be mindful of that. Referencing is something that we want to follow. We want you to follow the referencing style that is used in as Emerald Publishing and the Harvard referencing style that we use. As you know, every research paper would have keywords, but many a times I have seen that keywords are very general. Make sure that you use very focused keywords, so that whenever any search happens, or whenever we think of publishing, so any new keywords that enhances the searchability of the research or the paper or the journal, definitely are given priority. So don't use general keywords. You have to be very targeted keywords when you're writing your paper, and you have to mention those keywords in the abstract, I mean below the abstract. So if you're using general keywords, that might have repercussions, so never ever use. And that is very true for all the journals, not only for OIR, but all the journals probably you would target to submit. You need to use a very targeted keywords that will help in extracting your elicit your paper or the journal visibility when the search engine functions. Originality is something which is written in the abstract itself. And what is originality? Originality, for the text rejection again, many of the times originality is very general, like something has not happened in this region, so I'm doing it. I'm afraid that would not be the criteria for originality. Originality should be something that you can defend in the gaps, and you can show through the literature that what you are trying to evaluate in your paper holds some novelty that has not been um, I would not say that has not been done before. In fact, everything has done before, but you are trying to target a context, or you're trying to target something which matters. So something has not happened in a region. That's why I'm doing it over here. That is not enough originality to publish your paper, I'm afraid. So try to bring out something which is more logical. You can place a lot of arguments into it. Like when we are considering a paper on LGBT, so they have used theories and they have used frameworks, and they have defended that research, given a whole lot of data, and why this kind of interaction of LGBT on social media is important. So that's why we are giving some consideration to that paper. So it is not something that research on LGBT has never happened, or diversity has never happened on social media. It's not like that. But how you're creating your context would matter a lot. So try to bring in that kind of originality when you write your paper, and when you think of any topic that you would want to, or you would love to work on. So that would really be important. Abstract has to be really structured, not more than 250 words. And in my experience, I have seen that when it comes to findings or design, people actually put all the research method extract in the abstract, which is not needed at all. You don't have to put your methods in your design and findings in the abstract. Abstract means, the hook or the conclusion probably that you would want to create. If I'm reading a paper and the abstract and introduction feels really nice and I'm hooked to it, trust me, your chances of getting accepted increased by many folds. I just trust me on that. So you really need to work on your abstract and introduction. If you can hook me or any editor in that section, your chances of publication increases many-fold. So you work on that, your originality, your finding. What are your major findings? You don't have to give me, all the findings that you have found in your paper or every design, the mixed method, how many participants, all those things. You just have to mention it so that, your 250 word limit is not crossed. And also, I see some potential in your paper when I go through the abstract and introduction. So working on these two sections are really, really critical. And to increase your chances of acceptance, I think this would really matter. When an editor reads your paper, they really look forward to the abstract and introduction. If I lose interest in abstract and introduction, then probably I'm not even interested to go through your paper further. And probably it will be a desk reject. So you have to make sure that you work on these two very, very nicely and put in your efforts into it. Okay. Now, when you are submitting a paper in your any journal for that matter, please read through that journal. It's very important. I mean, I know and I understand as an academic and as a researcher, we prepare a paper and we have some target in our mind, but sometimes we getting rejected from that journal. So what do? We just submit that same paper to another journal, and that increases your chances of desk rejection because you don't read through the journal, you don't look into the scope of that journal, and you just submit your paper as it is, as it was rejected from the previous journal. So that is definitely a no in my perspective as an editor. You can trust me on that. So please go through whenever your paper is getting rejected from, say, journal A, and you plan to submit it in journal B or journal Z, you need to look into the fit of your paper in that journal. You might need to reposition your paper through the scope of that journal which you are targeting now. So just blindly submitting the paper in the next journal, the rejected paper, is not a good idea at all. So look into the fit of your paper in that journal. If it needs a little bit of rewriting or repositioning, I would highly encourage you doing that. Okay. The manuscript requirement, like lot of papers, as I said, are rejected just on the basis of the word count in OIR. So if you don't know that 10,000 is the maximum word count, people submit like 12,000, 13,000 word count, and that is a definite no. We just don't encourage it, no matter how good your paper is. Word count is a strict requirement for OIR, and if you're not following it, you'll be desk rejected. So, manuscript requirement is very, very critical to look into if you really want your paper not to be desk rejected or sent to you for early revisions. You should avoid it by going through this. Ethical statement, as I have told you, OIR, we place very high regard on your ethical approvals, your author responsibility as a researcher, and how good you have used your ethical forms and ethical norms, and how well you have considered them while preparing a manuscript. That is really, really critical in OIR. If we find that there's no ethical approval, or you have used human experimentation and participants without consent, or anything as such, we may want to desk reject your paper. And at the later stage, even if a paper is accepted, it might be a possibility that we ask for those kind of approvals from you as submission, as part of your submission. So be very careful when you prepare your manuscript, and ethics when it's required. In fact, as a researcher myself, I have known that many of the journals today, they don't even accept papers who have not been approved by any ethical committee. So make sure that you do that. No matter how good your paper, these things are ground for desk rejection. So you don't want to get into all those things. Some little things, like you're missing references, or you are not using referencing, or you're having a typo, or these kind of errors. These are very petty errors, very trivial in the first, as a researcher we think, but trust me, it creates a very bad impression when we look at that you have not referenced enough or you have used very old references. That is not something that is very, very good, or it creates a good impression. So be mindful of all these things. Although we don't encourage a strict proofreading requirement, but if you have access to proofreaders, or if you can do that proofreading, if you have that kind of, funding or any is resource, I would highly encourage you to take your paper through proofreading before you submit it to any journal, and specifically OIR. When I first submitted my paper to this journal, I actually went three revisions just for the proofreading, and it was really, really bad experience. So from my experience, I'm telling you, many of the journals, it's very important that you use that kind of proofreading, because also this journal uses British English. So always remember to organize your words as British spelling. Like when you say organization, we usually use Z, like Z as organization, but in British English we use S. So be mindful of that. Just because of that, I had to go through the proofreading process for three times. So that is very, very critical. British English is something that we use in OIR. We don't entertain US English. So whenever you're preparing your manuscript, you have to be mindful that you are using your spellings in British English, like, S instead of Z, and all these things, right? We are using center, spelling of all those things that are very, very critical. So try to have these kind of, although as I said, we don't encourage or mandate these proofreadings, but if possible, it is very highly recommended that you let your paper go through proofreading before you finally submit it, because all these kind of small little mistakes are not very good to look at as an editor, because we have a lot of submissions, and you can understand that going through each paper full with these kind of mistakes is not a good idea. It's a very, we are thankful for the reviewers, we are thankful for editors who do this kind of service without any reimbursement or so. I am sure many of you in the session also review for journals, and you understand that how painful it is, right? So you have to make sure that you create that kind of hook in the minds of editor and reviewer, and to increase your early chances of getting into the review pipeline, at least if not publication. Also, one thing that I would want to highlight over here is, whenever you are reviewing also for the paper, or you are creating a paper, I am very much sure that people use AI, and it is okay to use generative AI. But if you are blindly using generative AI and your references are hallucinated, and your data is hallucinated, or your writing is hallucinated for that matter, it is very easy for the journal to detect all those things, and you might not be entertained for resubmission as well. So be responsible and be ethical in declaring that you have used AI for any of the purposes. However, this journal, we don't encourage, AI to be considered as co-author, or analysis or writing to be completely taken under by any generative AI software. We are not considering it, and if it is found that you have used it, probably you will be not allowed to submit or resubmit any paper further in that journal. So be mindful of it. Even if you're reviewing for it, OIR, or for any other journal, I think it is written statement in journals pages these days that please don't upload the paper and anonymous papers in AI to generate that kind of review, because again, as I said, it's very, very easy these days to find out, whether this is an AI generated review or someone has devoted time to review this for the paper. So if you're using it, I think you will be losing your, ground, and you'll be losing your standing in the community. So try to be, taking help is definitely not something that I would discourage, but depending on it completely would be something that you might consider. reconsider in terms of as an author or as a reviewer. But once, say in a OIR, your paper is in the pipeline for review, then you get the review. It's double anonymized, so reviewers don't see your name and you don't see your reviewer's name either. So it's something that we strictly adhere to. We don't disclose names to the author or the reviewer. And when you get the revision, I can understand completely that sometimes revisions are taken up by reviewers, which probably cannot be done, or you have some other ideas in mind. So please feel free to defend your research. You don't have to literally cover everything that the reviewer is talking about. If you strongly feel that your research hold that essence which cannot be changed, or you can argue against something that is pointed by the reviewer, and you strongly believe in something, you should, and I would highly encourage you to come up with those kind of arguments or references or anything that you would want to put up in front of the editor or the reviewer that you would not want to change. So that can be considered. Okay, trust me on that as well. So you don't have to abide by everything that the reviewer is saying. It is not something which is set on stone. But if you believe in something, if you truly have an idea in mind that you think, is you can defend, then feel free to do that. Okay. You don't have to consider everything that the reviewer is saying. But one thing which is very common and not given proper consideration by the authors is something that, say, you are submitting in OIR, and I see no references of OIR in your paper. How do I even want to consider it? I mean, if your paper is not advancing the dialogue of already published paper and research of OIR, it doesn't make sense to even consider your paper for publication in OIR. So if you are submitting to OIR, make sure that you are advancing a dialogue of a submitted paper in OIR. So suppose if you want to work on human behavior, for example, if I'm just giving you an example, if you want to work on human behavior and there is a research published on human behavior on OIR already, then you need to cite that research and develop a gap or advance that dialogue or address the limitations in that paper already cited, so that it is something that we look forward to in advancing the dialogue and continuing the research, the kind of research which is published in OIR. So make sure that you cite papers, go through the papers of OIR and look into it in terms of how you are trying to, take the dialogue forward, advance the research which has already been published in OIR. You just cannot come up with something which has no prequel or no scope in OIR at all. So the bottom line is, if you are not citing papers from OIR, if you're not advancing any dialogue from OIR, that is something which probably is a very discouraging for editors to take your paper through the review process, or allow you further feedback on your paper. So
Sorry for the noise, ma'am. You may continue.
thank you. So that is something that you would want to consider when you're submitting in OIR. As I have already mentioned, Emerald's policy regarding the LLMs or copy editing, transparency, we place very high regard in all these things. And we want our authors to be very transparent in their usage of generative AI, or how they have used copy editing, if they have used, or if they have used AI, in what capacity they have used AI. All these things needs to be taken into consideration and declared very, very transparently while submitting the paper, including the ethics approval and the committee and your reference number, any funding that you have received, that needs to be declared very, very, very clearly. Just an announcement here. Recently, Emeralds has been taken over by Wiley. but the Emerald name has still been retained, and the journals will be still published by that name because Emeralds has very high regard in this publication journey and industry. So if you see something around that news, this is what it is. Now you know. So this is something that I would want to explicitly state. um, some tips as I have been continuing in my whole dialogue and discussion over here, that what we need as an editor or what we need as a publisher, as a journal, but here are some tips which is explicitly stated for all of you. The hook, as I talked about, is really, really important. If you cannot create a hook in the abstract and introduction section itself, I think that is an absolute no-no for me as a reader or an editor to go further down and read your paper. So that is very, very important that you create that kind of hook. And with hook, it doesn't mean that this research has not been done in this geographic area, so I'm doing it. That is not enough hook. Or someone says that somebody has not used mixed method but I'm using a mixed method. That is not enough hook. So you have to justify why it is important and why that kind of research is important. So, and having said that, again, I would not say that anything you are going to pick will be absolute novel, and nothing has been done on that before. This will be hardly that kind of situation that you will come across. But what is important is how you identify that gap and try to present and argue it. I know it's not always something that is given a lot of consideration, but I think good journals really look into all these things before taking your paper for review. um, as I said, align with the scope. If any paper has been rejected by any journal, the same paper should not be submitted to any other journal. It's very, very critical to look into the aim and scope of the journal and tweak your paper or reposition your paper according to that journal's need and requirement. If you don't do that, you literally are diminishing your own chances of getting into the review process or receiving constructive feedback. Word limit for OIR is really, really strict. As I said, we don't entertain anything beyond 3% plus minus. Minus, of course, more than 3%, but plus is something. 3% is really, really high range that I'm giving you, because it's very, very critical that you stick to the word count in OIR. And if you're exceeding, you must look into it, how it can be how it can be readjusted, retoned, repositioned, or anything extra that which is not required, or repeated stuff can be taken away. And here only, the proofreading and everything comes into picture. They really help you a lot. If you have access to those kind of resources, I would highly encourage you to look into those if you want to submit over in a good journal or in OIR. Ethics approval, as I have said and repeatedly mentioned, it's very critical, especially involving human subjects for any surveys that you have taken up. Ethics approval or presenting your proposal to the ethics committee, getting the approval would be really, really good and mandatory if your research has human participants or any ethical concerns. Otherwise, at the later stage, even if your paper is accepted and you're not being able to produce those things, it might get rejected even if it's accepted. So it is that critical. So these are some concise tips for authors who want to target OIR for their next publication outlet. I'm happy to take any questions now. And I hope that this session was useful for you, and you would consider submitting your good research into OIR. Thank you very much, everyone. Open to the questions, please. Thank you.
I request the audience for any questions you have. You may please go ahead with the questions. Yes, Samik Bhatri, please, you may go ahead with your questions.
Ma'am, good evening, madam.
Good evening, Samik.
Yes, ma'am. My question is, ma'am, actually, what is OIR? OIR, what are its objectives, and why it being used in journals for the? It is only used for the measuring the quality and error, and also the sentences or the citation.
I think you have joined the session late. Have you?
Little bit late. Yes. Yes.
So OIR is the short form of Online Information Review. It's a journal.
Okay.
Okay, it's a journal that I am serving as an editor, and it's a journal which is ranked ABS 2 and ABCDB. So OIR is an acronym for Online
Online form.
Information Review.
Okay. Actually, ma'am, I thought it is like used for measuring the quality and the and
No,
error. Okay. And
no,
ma'am,
not
one
like that.
another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Another question is, ma'am, in the journal, there is if my journal is being rejected, and if I want to resubmit my journal once more into the same publisher, so would I have to moderate my, I have to recheck my journal and to re-add something my citation or re-add some aspects to my journal to
Um, yeah, thank
myself
you for your question, Samik. I
clarity.
think you are mistakenly saying journal instead of paper, your manuscript.
Sorry, paper, not journal, paper.
Yeah. So when you are writing a paper and you have submitted to a journal, say journal A, and it has been rejected, I don't think it's a very good idea to resubmit the same paper to that journal again. It will not be
Okay,
considered at all
okay,
because there are records, and you will be asked that whether you have submitted this paper previously to this journal. You will have to give the reference number and everything. It's not
yes,
a good idea to resubmit the same paper to the same journal once it has been rejected. However, if you can reposition
yes,
it or add something
yeah,
valuable to it,
yes,
if it's changed completely, say
change.
more than
Yeah. If I
70% or
change
so,
more than the 50% of the
more than
content,
70%, I would say, then it would be definitely a good idea to reconsider that journal again. And
consider
as I have said, any journal that you're considering, including OIR, it's a very good idea to advance the dialogue in that paper already, in that journal where the paper has already been published. So citations would automatically come. If I don't see any citations from OIR, and if you have submitted to
yes,
OIR, then it's very obvious that you have not read the journal and you have not read the
yes,
papers of the journal,
yes,
and you're
yes,
not
yes,
advancing any dialogue which has already
yes,
been
yes.
published. So that's a definitely discouraging, I would say. I
And
hope
the
I have answered your
citation,
question.
ma'am, and the referencing, if I publishing my paper in the year 2026, the
Yeah.
referencing should be on the same year or the previous 2 years, 3 years before.
We don't think that any of the journals would want to considers if you are see um, recent public referencing are always encouraged. If whole of your paper is having a decade old referencing or something like that, that is desk rejection for me or for any other journal. So recent citations are always encouraged. But if you have any seminal theory or seminal paper which you just can't do with, you can cite even if it's 30 years old. But if you are doing a work on some research on a topic, I think it's very good idea to look into the recent papers. Only then you can advance the dialogue, right? Otherwise, many people would have already done it. So you might miss the gap if you don't look
Okay.
into the recent
So
advancements and dialogues.
recent theory should be accepted. Recent theories and recent. Uh, thank you,
Why
ma'am.
not? I mean, if it's interesting, anything is accepted. So let's go forward to
It
it.
should be interesting. But if it is a well-established theory, it can be repeated. If it is a
Of
well-established
course,
theory,
of
it can be
course,
repeated, can be used again and again in the
of
same.
course,
Yes,
of course.
it depends upon the theory, nature of the theory, nature of the paper.
It depends upon your paper, not the
Yes, ma'am.
theory. Okay. Thank you so much, Samik. I hope I have answered your queries.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
So, dear
Um,
participants, if you are
I can
having
see
more,
Ashwita. Yeah, I can see Ashwita in the chat. Yes, Ashwita, you are right. There are no open calls for this journal as of now, but we are looking forward to soon having some open calls in this journal, so you can look into it. Otherwise, you can submit to the journal in the scope that I have just stated. Thank you so much. Yeah. Anyone else?
so so till then, participants come with some questions. So I would like to take the opportunity to ask you,
Sure.
questions. Is there any possibility that we can submit proposal for conference proceeding or
Which
special
proceed?
issue?
I'm sorry.
Conference proceeding or special issue?
With in collaboration with the journal.
Yes. Is
Yes,
it?
we can definitely have some dialogues, and it can be forwarded to the editor in chief, and
Yeah.
we can consider that for sure. That should not be a problem. Depending on the proposal, I think we can go ahead with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, dear participants, if you are having any more questions, please ask it. If seconds I can wait, then I am forced to, conclude the session. So I think our participants, because it is, day 15 today, so they are
All of them are exhausted.
they are exhausted. But I found today's, session very much interesting, and the
Thank
way
you.
you have shared the comprehensive, guidelines about your journal, and it is really an eye-opener that inviting editor to join us. Garima has joined us. So sharing your insights and how authors can get help to, follow
Yeah.
each and every step. So therefore, Garima, are you having time to conclude or I should proceed?
As you wish. If you want, like, you can conclude, or like I'm there for a few minutes.
Okay, thank you. Actually, we are not having more questions from the participants, so we are in a position to conclude now. Therefore, wasting much time. So let me, let if you are interested to conclude, just come, quietly, quickly jump. Then I will give final remarks. What do you think? Or
Okay.
if you are hurry to go, then I can proceed. Please let me know.
No, 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 not at all, because today is the last day. So since 15 days, the sessions have been there. So you need to take more time to thank all the resource person and all the moderators and all the audience for their patience. So, but I definitely want to thank Professor Ekta Sinha ma'am. Thank you for
Thank you so
taking
much.
out time and joining and giving us such a informative session to all our participants. So over to you,
Thank you so
Professor
much.
Malik.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Professor Ekta, for joining us at very short notice on behalf of Jammu and Kashmir Economic Association, uh,
Thank you.
Global South Research Firm, Crescent University, BS Abdur Rahman, Chennai, School of Management, Manav Rachna University, Faridabad, Vocational College, Delhi University. So we are very grateful for joining us, for sharing very crispy and comprehensive, session, how we can submit to and have more chances to get, you know, acceptance rather than desk rejection, all the, guidelines. It was very, very much helpful, and I think it is one of the exceptional sessions. Although we are, learning so many research methods, how to publish, how to write, but this was one of the unique sessions, inviting editor and giving your precious time. We really appreciate for your precious time and, accepting very short notice. So therefore, we are very grateful on behalf of
Thank
all
you so much.
institutions.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much, Professor
similarly,
Malik, for the invite.
yeah, similarly, I would like to have a special thanks to Dr. Garima for accepting and remain active during the session. So again, we are grateful on behalf of all institutions, and we are looking forward for more such interactions in future. And myself, I will definitely reach to your, inbox with some, submissions as in the form of proposal. Let us see how it will work. So I am
I look
glad.
forward to some collaborations for sure.
Yeah,
I think
One thing to
anybody
add,
in the audience, yeah, I'm sorry to
thing,
interrupt.
one thing to add. Most importantly, thank you, Professor Malik, for organizing such informative FDPs every time, connecting people, bringing the resource person. So, very much thank you to Malik, Dr. Malik. So, it's all the credit goes to you and your team of JNK Economic Association and all your partners, institutions. So, once again, thank you.
we are grateful, and it is always pleasure to connect, to collaborate, and to make something impactful for the society and for ourselves. So I also appreciate from day one to all our participants that it is the opportunity. That is why we have designed this workshop, not focused on learning research methods and research methodology, but let us, get insights from the, authors who have already published they will share their story so that we will learn that how they have started by identifying the research problem and finally, successful publication. So this was the unique area I have designed. You cannot find such, FDPs. If you can Google it, you cannot see, such titles for the, 15-day workshop. I can challenge you. So thank you very much for Madam Ekta.
Anyone from the
And
audience, anyone from the participants want to say anything, like they can share their experience or any word of thanks to anyone from the participants?
no, that Garima we are doing after a while. I believe
Okay.
that our resource person is, busy. So we would like to, conclude this session. So that is why I am now going to, stop the recording. So